Fernando, espérate, que estoy intentando una cosa.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and lift off.
Muy buenas noches cuando son las 3:27 hora local aquí en Florida, cuando son las 9:27 en la península, 8:27 en las Islas Canarias. Muchísimas gracias por estar ahí. Estamos en el Kennedy Space Center en directo. Tenemos el cohete de Polaris Dawn pues aproximadamente a unos 4 kilómetros desde la terraza que tengo aquí a mi izquierda. En estos momentos nos hemos metido en el interior, donde estamos con gente del equipo de Polaris Dawn, que tenemos una televisión, como veis ahí al fondo, muy poquita gente porque el Kennedy Space Center está absolutamente cerrado. Hemos conseguido una invitación especial del equipo y han tenido la amabilidad de pues permitirnos hacer esta conexión aquí en directo. El lanzamiento se debería producir a las 3:38, aunque hay un retraso. Parece que no van con la primera ventana, van con la segunda ventana, que es aproximadamente a las 5 y pico de la mañana aquí. Yo creo que estoy viendo la cuenta atrás. Tenemos un pico hasta el lanzamiento, no lo puedo ver desde aquí, pero sigue la intención de que el cohete salga esta noche. La tripulación ya está, por supuesto, preparada. El tiempo se nos había advertido que teníamos una posibilidad de solo un 40%, pero bueno, el tiempo no es malo. Nosotros hemos llegado aquí, por supuesto está todo a oscuras, muchísima humedad, hemos tenido que limpiar las cámaras cuando hemos salido al mirador que tengo justo aquí a la izquierda, pero ahora lo que nos toca es esperar, así que no sé cómo lo vamos a ir a hacer, estamos un poco improvisando. La señal aquí es absolutamente terrorífica, así que Fernando está haciendo virguerías para que os pueda llegar por lo menos algo. Cada vez que tocamos algo se nos desmonta todo, así que veréis unos microcortes. Esto es por pues, todas las interferencias. También pensamos que bueno, aquí la seguridad es muy alta y no sabemos si hay algún tipo de inhibidor de señal, así que como hay temas inalámbricos, cualquier cosa que tocamos en cuanto nos movemos tenemos ahí pequeños cortes, así que disculpar, esto es los rigores del directo. ¿Qué podemos contaros? Bueno, pues que ha sido, como os decía, un honor, ¿no? El que ayer Jared me mandase por la noche, el comandante de la misión, me mandase un mensaje directo en Twitter, me preguntara, oye, ¿cuál es tu correo? Y a los 10 minutos me llegase un correo electrónico pues invitándome a estar aquí hoy, ¿no? Hemos estado en el hotel justo antes de venir, nos han puesto unos autobuses. Hemos conocido pues a astronautas que habían estado en la misión Inspiration 4. Veréis una foto en Twitter y bueno, están sus familiares, amigos cercanos y bueno, pues están todos aquí apoyando a este día absolutamente histórico. Esperemos que la misión se lance. Contaros que tienen hoy hasta el viernes por la noche aquí, lo que es el sábado por la mañana, y si no se produce el lanzamiento en uno de estos días, lo que se está comentando es que van a hacer una pausa y no se sabe cuándo se va a poder reanudar esta misión. Esta misión Polaris Dawn, que va a ser histórica por varios motivos. En primer lugar, porque existe un objetivo de alcanzar una altitud a la que el ser humano no ha llegado desde las misiones a la Luna con el Saturno 5, ¿no? Cuando venía hacia esta sala he hecho un pequeño directo en Instagram donde habéis visto que tenía el Saturno 5 justo encima de mi cabeza. Iba como medio temblando, todavía con las mochilas, corriendo para llegar aquí y montar todo este tinglado en este edificio, bueno, absolutamente mítico, ¿no? Tenemos la plataforma de lanzamiento donde está el Polaris, la 39A, desde donde partió el hombre a la Luna. Esos miradores que habéis visto muchas veces en las películas, donde están los familiares observando el lanzamiento, los tenemos justo aquí debajo. Y bueno, nos han dado acceso a una terraza que está un poco más elevada para poder retransmitir en directo. Teníamos una visión preciosa del cohete, yo creo que la mejor que se puede tener desde este lugar, pero dado el retraso nos hemos metido en esta sala por la humedad y también por los mosquitos que nos comen absolutamente vivos. Así que vamos a esperar aquí con el aire acondicionado y mientras os voy a ir contando cosas. Os decía que esta misión va a ser histórica por varios motivos. Uno, porque tienen el objetivo, como os decía, de alcanzar un récord histórico de altura, sobre todo para una misión civil. El hombre no ha estado a esa altura desde las misiones a la Luna, ¿no? Tienen previsto llegar a más de 1000 kilómetros de altura, que es absolutamente histórico, para luego descender hasta unos 700, ¿no? De 1400 kilómetros a unos 700. ¿Por qué quieren subir tan alto? Bueno, pues que el objetivo de esto no es que un millonario como es Jared Isaacman quiera ir al espacio porque se le ha encaprichado, ¿no? Jared, aparte que os decía que es una persona muy generosa, es una persona involucrada en muchas misiones caritativas, donando muchísimo dinero a la investigación del cáncer infantil, pero también van a hacer diferentes experimentos científicos y uno de ellos, el subir tan alto, es para exponerse a la radiación, porque ahí a esas alturas en los cinturones de Van Allen, bueno, pues existen todo tipo de partículas pues que provienen del Sol, la mayoría, y van a estar expuestos a muchísima radiación, y uno de los objetivos es ver cómo se comporta la Dragón y cómo reacciona también el cuerpo humano a esa exposición, ¿no? Más cosas históricas. Va a ser el primer... ¿Quiénes son los astronautas? Bueno, pues porque claro, estamos hablando de 4 seres humanos que en este momento están a escasos 4 kilómetros en esa posición ya en vertical, con el traje, el casco, hablando completamente, totalmente por radio cada segundo, con misión control. ¿Y quiénes son? Pues 4 seres humanos maravillosos, empezando por el comandante Jared Isaacman, os decía, multimillonario. Él es el fundador de la empresa Ship4, que es una empresa de pagos que salió a bolsa y ahí es donde se hizo su gran fortuna. Empezó a los 18 años y bueno, pues hoy en día tiene un capital económico muy importante que, como os decía, aparte de hacer muchas donaciones, pues también tiene mucho interés en el espacio y ha comprado 4 misiones. Digo comprar porque así es como lo ha hecho, ¿no? A SpaceX ha ido y le ha dicho voy a hacer 4 lanzamientos. Luego os comento si queréis cuánto es el coste de cada lanzamiento, pero ya hizo uno en 2021. Tenéis la serie en Netflix, que os la recomiendo encarecidamente. Se llama Cuenta Atrás, Inspiration 4. Y Jared Isaacman, que es el comandante de esta misión. Muchísima experiencia, aparte de ser multimillonario y ser una persona con muchos intereses en la humanidad, pues también es un muy buen piloto. Tiene varios récords del mundo en lo que es récords de velocidad en circunnavegar el globo en avión. Tiene más de 7.000 horas de vuelo, 7.000 horas de vuelo más a la derecha, me dice Fernando. Tengo a Fernando por aquí. Gracias, Fernando, por estar ahí, que me está diciendo ponte a la derecha porque va a mostrar una pequeña pantalla. Jared Isaacman, que os decía, tiene más de 7.000 horas de vuelo de experiencia y ya ha estado en el espacio en 2020. ¿Quién más le acompaña, bueno, pues Scott Potit, con su apodo militar Key, teniente coronel retirado de la aviación estadounidense, con experiencia en combate, también experiencia en vuelos acrobáticos, una persona que, aparte amante del deporte, como un loco el triatlón de larga distancia, Scott Potit, que ha hecho el Ironman de Hawái 4 veces y, os decía, un piloto con muchísima experiencia, ¿no? Y luego dos mujeres, tenemos a Sarah Gillis, que fue la ingeniera que ayudó a la misión de Inspiration 4 a llegar al espacio, centro de control de la misión. Ella es una ingeniera que trabaja para SpaceX y en el 2021 ayudó a Inspiration 4 a llegar al espacio, y ahora es ella la que se va a subir en esta nave y la que va a volar. Así que imaginaros la emoción que tiene que estar sintiendo en este momento el estar al otro lado de las pantallas y del micrófono y ser ella la que va a experimentar el salir al espacio. Y por último, no por menos importante, tenemos a Anna Menon. Anna Menon, también ingeniera, trabaja para SpaceX. Ella es la oficial médica de la misión. Anna Menon, que ha escrito un libro para niños que se llama Kisses from Space, que os digo, las personas que estáis viendo el directo en este momento vais a poder participar en el sorteo de uno de los libros de Anna Menon, que tiene la intención de leer desde el espacio, un libro que se inspiró, bueno, pues en lo que fue toda la preparación de más de 2 años en la misión para que sus hijos tuvieran un documento, pero también para los niños del Hospital St. Jude, los niños que sufren de cáncer en todo el mundo. Y vamos a tener un libro firmado por Anna Menon, Kisses from Space, más y nada menos que firmado, para sortear entre las personas que estéis asistiendo al directo hoy en YouTube, en Facebook, en Twitch, desde donde estéis viendo. Así que esos son los 4 tripulantes, los 4 astronautas. El único que podemos llamar astronauta realmente es el comandante Jared Isaacman. Los otros 3 son, bueno, pues va a ser su primera vez, ¿no? Hay que decir que a alguien se le considera astronauta cuando sobrepasa los 100 kilómetros de distancia, cuando entran en órbita, y generalmente por radio se les suele hacer un pequeño guiño para decir, oye, ya os habéis convertido en astronautas, ¿no? Ellos, si todo va bien, van a ir mucho más alto. ¿Cómo de alto? Pues deciros, mira, la Estación Espacial Internacional orbita en 200 y pico kilómetros de altura. Ellos se van a ir hasta más de 1.400 kilómetros de altura, es decir, muchísimo más alto que la Estación Espacial Internacional. Se van a ir mucho más alto que el Hubble. El Hubble está un poquito por encima de la Estación Espacial Internacional, orbitando unos 500 y pico kilómetros de altura. Bueno, como os decía, ellos van a subir hasta los 1.400. Y van a subir hasta los 1.400 para luego bajar y colocarse en una órbita de unos 190 kilómetros por 700 kilómetros. Y en esa órbita, me dice Fernando que tenemos cortes de audio. Vamos a ver si lo podemos solucionar. No sé si podemos tocar algo por aquí. Vale, parece que recuperamos el audio. Y os decía que van a descender hasta los 700 kilómetros para hacer una serie de experimentos a esa altura, de los que si queréis luego hablamos, experimentos médicos. Ellos, esta misión, pues ha hecho acuerdos con universidades estadounidenses y van a llevar a cabo más de 36 experimentos en el espacio, experimentos relacionados con los ojos, experimentos relacionados con trombosis venosas ocasionadas por descompresión, es decir, experimentos importantes que luego pueden servir como experiencia. Vamos a tocar el audio, no sé si podemos tocar algo por aquí, algún tipo de cable. Fernando, ¿tú me vas diciendo? Vale, vamos a ver por ahí. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Vamos a ver. Vamos a ver por qué. Fernando, tú me vas diciendo si recuperamos o no. Perfecto. Perfecto. os decía que la misión Polaris Dawn, uno de los objetivos que tiene también es llevar a cabo diferentes experimentos de salud en el espacio. ¿El porqué de esos experimentos? Pues la clave está en que tenemos la intención de ir a Marte, vamos a volver a la Luna y bueno, pues todos estos experimentos van a servir como experiencia clave para ver si los astronautas que se vayan a embarcar en misiones tan largas pues, tienen que tener o se pueden llevar algún tipo de mecanismo que les ayude a sobrellevar neuropatías. Vale. El audio, Fernando, no te preocupes. Voy a intentar procurar que muchísimos cables aquí. Como os decía, vale, vamos a ver si mejor. Mejor. Vamos a ver. Voy a intentar poner el emisor aquí delante, Fernando. ¿Sí o no? Fernando, dime si ahora hay audio. A ver si podemos recuperar la señal de audio. Tienes ahora, Fernando. Vale. Vale, parece ser que hemos recuperado la señal de audio. Os decía, tenemos tantas cosas que suceden por aquí a nivel de señales, a nivel de seguridad, a nivel de inhibidores, que hay veces que con todas estas cosas, estos inventos inalámbricos, se nos va el audio. Os estaba comentando que todos esos experimentos médicos tienen como objetivo el preparar a los futuros astronautas que vayan a ir a Marte, los que se vayan a enfrentar a radiaciones pues, que son absolutamente novedosas, ¿no? Por la duración de la misión, por los diferentes cinturones que van a atravesar, por las distancias, por el tiempo que van a pasar en el espacio. Por ejemplo, os decía, ¿no?, que uno de los estudios va a estar relacionado con los ojos. Tenéis que tener en cuenta que una vez alcanzan... No se me oye. No, vamos a ver. No entiendo. Vamos a ver. Vamos a intentar otra cosa, Fernando. Es... Ya. No vídeo y... But it's not the microphone. No. Vale. Ya. Ya. Me voy a ir por aquí. A ver, Fernando, dime si mejor o peor. Me voy a ir más lejos. Si es que... Ya, que no sé. Pero para hacia acá. Se nos corta. Vale. Vamos a intentar irnos a otro lado. Vamos a intentar irnos por aquí. ¿Mejor o peor? ¿Peor? Y aquí. No entiendo. Espera un momento, Fer. Vamos a buscar una solución. Nada. Vamos a intentar cambiar algo. Sí. Mejor. Mejor, peor. Ya. Vale, vamos a intentar mejorar la señal. Espera un momento, Fer. El caso es cuando me muevo. Ya, pero eso es muy raro. Vale. Pero no es el micro, Fernando. Bueno, estamos aquí, mi amigo Fernando Sierra, desde León, y yo a más de 8.000 kilómetros de distancia, luchando con la señal. Me dice, ¿funciona o no funciona? Así que os ruego que tengáis un poco de paciencia. Fernando, vete contándome, si te parece, si la señal se nos mantiene, porque lo que voy a intentar es salir aquí a la terraza para que podáis tener un poco de idea de a qué distancia tenemos el cohete, ¿no? Lo estoy viendo. Sí. Vale. Lo voy a intentar. Se sigue cortando, me dices. Ahí. Vale. Can you take it? Vamos a intentar todo. Vamos a hacerlo. Espera un momento, ¿eh? Espera un momento, Fernando. Vale. Escucha la de X. Tenemos la humedad que hace, es absolutamente tremenda. Genial. Recupera. Vale, voy a intentar restablecer esto. Ya. Vale, dime si estamos aquí luchando mi amigo Fernando y yo para ver si podemos. Fernando, porque el audio está entrando en el Maxwell. Ya. No sé si me podéis ver o no. Si te llega señal, Fer, me tienes que confirmar. Vale. Voy a intentar mostrar, me voy a mover la otra cámara para ver lo que podéis ver desde aquí. No sé si Fernando, si podemos coger esto desde mi cámara. Puedes llegar a ver. Voy a intentar. Ya. Estoy tocando ajustes de y va mejor o peor.
All of the ceremony was taped in this book. All of our vows were taped in the book. And then it got passed around and all the speeches got added in the book. And so it's just a very fun collection of very special memories captured in a very endearing cat and hat book.
I'm going to bring this big hunk of metal that will go higher than anyone has ever flown in Earth orbit.
I'd love to be able to have some sort of a memorabilia for everyone who contributes to this, of which it's pretty hard because there's 10,000 plus SpaceXers. I guess I wish I could bring something for everyone who's made a difference in this program.
I will, in particular, get to read this story from space to my kids here on Earth, as well as some of the brave kids of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And I think that connection moment while I'm up there floating in space is something I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to have.
So as you can see here on your screen, the Polaris Dawn crew, the seats have rotated back into the launch position. So that is a good sign. Everyone remains comfortable, buckled into their seats. We're now just under an hour and a half until the next launch opportunity. And we are keeping our fingers crossed that the weather cooperates better this time than it did last time. So we saw a little bit there about what these four individuals are taking with them into space. I think Jared's advice was kind of interesting. Take less. I kind of agree with that. I personally would probably just take my wedding ring, some flower seeds to plant, and my favorite book. Speaking of which, we already mentioned it earlier, but it's just such a beautiful book. This is a book that Anna actually co-authored, and it is basically just like a story for her children, and she's taking a copy with her to space, and I'm going to order one for myself and very kindly ask her to sign it when she gets back.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that Anna gets to bring something that she wrote and created onto the vehicle with her. But Atticus, what would you take?
I don't know, maybe just some popcorn, some candy, some soft drinks,
some snacks.
Yeah, some snacks. It's a long trip potentially. So.
Would you save any for you to eat when you came back to Earth? Or
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Maybe share with my friends some space candy.
There you go. Some
Jesse,
gifts.
What about you?
Oh, I would definitely have to bring a basketball.
Of course.
Basketball has made me who I am today, but what I really want to do is bring Space Jam to real life. That's my plan.
Amazing. John,
your basketball will be your zero-G indicator.
That is genius, John.
Or a Nerf ball. Yeah, a Nerf basketball.
There we go.
Not for a mission with an EVA operation, though.
Oh, yeah.
John, what would you take?
I'll be more of a sentimentalist. When I was in the Air Force, working Titan launch vehicles, not the ICBMs, but the above-ground launch vehicles, the Air Force only had one way to distinguish, and that was to give you a rocket badge that you would pin on to your uniform shirt. And so it said, yes, you're working launch vehicles. Well, I've had that since 1980 when I started working launch vehicles, and it's actually been to space and back on a Falcon 9 first stage. So I would take that well-worn and well-traveled badge, and I'd take it with me again, and away it would go.
Yep.
And then come back down. So it'd have 2 flights on it, and it would be a rocket badge. It'd be pretty cool.
I also thought of another one that you could do, your binder. The infamous webcast binder, just like I always have my my notebook. I think those would be 2 staples if we were to go.
Yep. My brains.
Who knows, maybe we'll do a webcast from space one day, right? We'll have some of our own employees up there, maybe broadcast live. You never know, right? That could be cool.
Anna and Sarah are making the way for us to go up there. So that could be a thing.
Yeah. We heard earlier that kid puked the whole time during his training. That would be me, 100%. I can barely ride in the back of an Uber.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's a little bit more spicy than an Uber on the way up to space.
It's okay. I will hold down the fort here while you guys go.
It's only 4 Gs. Only 4 Gs.
Yeah. Anyway, we are continuing to count down to the next launch opportunity for the Polaris Dawn crew. For those of you that have just recently joined us, all 4 of our crew members are inside that Dragon capsule there on your screen. They are the only ones left at the launch pad. The closeout crew have departed the pad, and we unfortunately had to reset the countdown clock just past, I think it was like T minus 48 minutes. So unfortunately, there was a last-minute radar scan that showed basically non-conforming weather requirements, and so we had to stand down and basically reset for our next opportunity, which is coming up in just 1 hour and 22 minutes. So the crew has remained in the Dragon capsule. Folks here for mission control are cycling through, getting an opportunity to stretch their legs, get some refreshments or some food, and really get refocused as we come back into almost right where we left off.
Yep, so as the clock continues to count, we're just at about T-minus 1 hour and 20 minutes. So far, everything with Falcon 9 and Dragon are being reported as healthy. But in the meantime, John, can we get a further status update?
Well, thanks, Atticus. T-minus 1 hour and 22 minutes, as you're just saying. Everything is kind of in abeyance for the moment. We're waiting to get more information on weather. You can see a view of Dragon spacecraft on top of Falcon 9 at Launch Complex 39A on Kennedy Space Center. Lights are on in the crew access arm, but it doesn't mean anybody is in the arm. And you can see there on the screen the crew. We rotated their seats back into the launch position at T-minus 1 hour and 28 minutes, just about 7 minutes ago. Currently, we're slowly moving up on T-minus 1 hour where things start to pick up.
Update.
And here comes the weather update.
QLB. All weather rules just cleared about 30 seconds ago, so we have a green range for weather rules, and we'll have our SpaceX meteorologist fill you in for the next T0.
It's great to hear, and stay by.
And Dragon SpaceX weather officer here. We did violate a number of launch rules for that cumulus that popped up at that initial T0, so made a good call there from the whole team, SLD 45 and all. And we are tracking a much better POV for this next T0. The elbow is tracking a 35% chance of violation, and if everything holds as it currently looks for another 20-30 minutes, we should be able to step that POV down. But overall, looking good for this next launch attempt.
And copy that, weather officer. That's really great to know. 35% presently for POV, and should be stepping down in the next 20 minutes or so. Good to hear.
Okay, so they've told the crew that what we're just getting from the launch weather officer. The first launch attempt we had to hold as we got inside T-minus 45 minutes. A cell had popped up, and it looked like we were going to be no-go at T0, which would have scrubbed us for the morning. So instead, we held off before we began prop load into the Falcon 9. That preserved a second launch attempt coming up in just under 80 minutes from now. That T0 is planned for 9 hours, 23 minutes, 49 seconds universal time, or 5:23 and 49 seconds a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Just about an hour or so before dawn there in Cocoa Beach, Florida. So hopefully they'll get a good view if the weather continues to dissipate. As I mentioned, we had the crew rotate seats back into the launch position at T-minus 1 hour and 28 minutes. On the SpaceX Falcon 9 side, the launch chief engineer is going through a technical readiness poll, making sure that the Falcon team is ready to pick up the count as we get inside T-minus 1 hour. Also, amplify a little bit on the launch weather officer. It's always interesting. A probability of violation, or POV as they call it, of 35%. So that means essentially 1 chance in 3 of violating the weather constraints that we would have for a launch. It's interesting. An optimist would say it's a 60% probability of good weather, You know, I don't know why we do the probability of violation, but that's the history. It's been that for as long as I have known it. The big thing that is changing is that the weather was fairly chaotic over the last hour. It's very hard to model and predict as the boundary layer was coming ashore. What they're seeing right now in the weather radar is the boundary looks like it's dissipating. And as the Corps told the crew and the weather officer amplified, we ought to know more in about 20 minutes as we get down close to T-minus 1 hour, in which case the probability of violation may actually decrease, give us an even better chance. Still looking at a variety of things. The rain showers that we saw earlier on the camera lens, making sure that they've dissipated, that we don't fly through rain on the way up. We also want to make sure the big one is cumulus cloud rules. We don't want any thick, high altitude clouds in the flight trajectory. And then, of course, continuing to watch the winds, but that looks to be pretty good. And if the rain dissipates and goes away, then the electric field intensity, which is currently green and go for launch, should also stay that way. So fingers crossed that the weather will continue to improve and we get a go here to continue through T-minus 1 hour and then prop load and take it the rest of the way on down. But right now, Kate, things are looking a little more optimistic than they were an hour or so ago.
Yeah, certainly better. Hearing that we've got a 35% chance of violating the weather requirements instead of 60, that's certainly a welcome improvement. So let's talk a little bit about the research that's going to be going up. So Polaris Dawn is the first of 3 planned.
Bueno, estamos haciendo virguerías, mi amigo Fernando, y estamos buscando señal por donde no la hay, pero estamos en un edificio absolutamente histórico. Mientras esperamos, no sé, os quiero enseñar, no sé si lo podéis ver, os voy a... Vale, estáis viendo el edificio donde está el cohete Saturno V. Fijaros, aquí tenemos el parche de Apolo 13. Aquí tenemos el parche de Apolo 12. Lo que estáis viendo aquí es el cohete, el Saturno V en toda su extensión. Aquí tenéis como se puede apreciar perfectamente lo que es el motor de la última fase, si no me equivoco. Y me voy a ir desplazando para que, bueno, veis que el edificio está absolutamente cerrado. Y aquí tenéis el parche de la misión Apolo 11, ¿no? 1969, 20 de julio, Armstrong aterrizando en la Luna y marcando un hito absolutamente histórico, ¿no? Me voy a quedar por aquí porque me dice Fernando que ahora la cosa va bien. Entonces no sé si lo podemos intentar, Fer. Fíjate, me dice que no tenemos corte, pues hemos tenido la suerte de cuando hemos entrado en este edificio, además con la ventaja de que tenemos aire acondicionado. Estoy absolutamente alucinado, es un hangar gigantesco, habéis podido ver. Me voy a cambiar de cámara, me voy a ir hacia la otra, ¿vale? Y voy a intentar mostraros, cambiando los ángulos. Vamos a ver si podemos conseguir una imagen un poquito. Estoy aquí, no sé si vamos a ver si quitar, porque tengo muchísimo. ¿Sí? Vale. Podéis ver, me encantaría enseñaros, voy a intentar colocar esto que esté bien, me encantaría enseñaros, mira, fijaros, ahí tenéis el parche de la misión Apolo 11, las dimensiones que tiene esto, ¿no? Voy a ir girando poco a poco para que podáis ver el motor. Yo creo que va a ir enfocando. ¿Qué tal te llega ahí la señal, Fer? Yo creo... Es que no puedo quitar más el zoom, tengo demasiada lente. Pero bueno, lo que voy a hacer es intentar hacerlo con la otra cámara, que yo creo que va a ser mejor. Vamos a ver si... Píchame la otra, Fer. Yo creo que aquí tenemos más, ¿no? Vale. Os quiero enseñar, voy a intentar hacer un poquito de zoom para enseñaros los detalles del motor, ¿no? Quiero enseñaros, a ver si podéis ver las dimensiones. Para que os hagáis una idea, voy a cerrar un poco el plano. Fíjate, vale, a ver si puedo enfocar. Fer, dime si podéis ver, hay una furgoneta ahí abajo, para que veáis el tamaño, ¿no? Comparativamente. ¿Podéis ver la furgoneta ahí abajo? Es como un carrito de los helados ahí al fondo. Y fijaros la dimensión del cohete en la comparativa con la furgoneta, ¿no? Os voy a subir para que veáis el techo, para que veáis el pedazo de hangar que es este. Esto, claro, si venís por aquí por Florida, lo podéis visitar, ¿no? Es una visita que yo recomiendo, ¿no? Si os lo podéis permitir en algún momento, es como un sueño, ¿no? Podéis aquí ver las dimensiones. Y aquí es donde está, bueno, pues el grupo que os comentaba, con la pantalla, donde lo último que he podido escuchar es que el lanzamiento sigue adelante. Así que yo ya he perdido la noción del tiempo. Voy a darle la vuelta a esto, Fer. Me voy a poner aquí, así. Vale, me voy a alejar. Yo he perdido la noción del tiempo. No sé si son las 4:10 de la mañana. Yo, las 4:12. 4:12 aquí. He perdido la noción del tiempo, como os decía, ¿no? Porque entre el viaje, el llegar hasta aquí, el no haber dormido absolutamente nada y el estar pendientes de todo esto, ya no sé ni qué hora es. Voy a intentar conseguir un té. Fer, yo no sé si es rizar mucho el rizo, pero si queréis volvemos a intentar, ahora que tenemos una buena señal, el salir a la otra terraza. No sé cómo lo ves, si te atreves o no. Voy a necesitar ayuda. Sí, lo probamos. Bueno, tú me vas contando porque voy a necesitar ayuda para intentar salir, a ver si nos aguanta todo esto. ¿Vale? Voy a moverme por aquí. Voy a pedir ayuda para ver si alguien me puede echar una mano. ¿Nos aguanta, Fernando? Vale. Voy a traer la otra cámara. Vale. Voy a mover... Es que tú no sabes el tinglado que tenemos aquí montado, ¿eh? Vamos a moverlo. Me la voy a llevar para allá. Vamos a poder... A ver si podemos salir a la otra terraza y os puedo enseñar un plano. ¿Sigue aguantando, Fer? ¿Sí? Aquí nos vamos a... Estamos en un sitio maldito. Vamos a salir por aquí. Salir aquí. Vale. Dime si se va. No. Es que es maravilloso. Nada, nos tenemos que ir.
100 schools in Chile and Brazil, striving to increase internet connectivity, which can improve education and telemedicine efforts for communities in need. The Polaris Dawn crew actually had a chance to hear from the students in Chile after Starlink was installed.
¿Por qué los hombres van al espacio?
Vale, hemos intentado irnos a la terraza desde donde se ve perfectamente el cohete y ahí perdemos toda la señal. Así que si me vengo al hangar donde tenemos el Saturno 5 tenemos señal. Si salgo a la terraza donde tenemos el cohete de la Polaris Dawn no tenemos señal. Así que lo que vamos a hacer es, os voy a ir contando cosas mientras Fer va a ir pinchando la señal de SpaceX para ver, porque es que realmente yo no lo estoy siguiendo. Veo la pantalla desde aquí, veo al equipo de Polaris. Delfín, por favor, infórmate if it's a go or no go and the time. Me dice Fernando 1:07. Bueno, pues vamos a ir intentando contaros cosas, ¿no? Por lo menos aquí no hay mosquitos y por lo menos aquí tenemos aire acondicionado. Porque os preguntaréis, oye, ¿qué temperatura hace? Pues en este momento yo creo que más de 20 y pico grados altos, claro, con una humedad prácticamente del 80 al 90%, ¿no? O sea que calor de este pesado. Pero bueno, me voy a quedar aquí y os voy a ir contando. Mira, me voy a apoyar hasta en la barandilla y voy a coger un poquito de agua, si me lo permitís. Me voy a salir del plano y voy a beber un poquito de agua porque estoy bastante deshidratado. Fernando, yo creo que me había quedado en contar el tema de los experimentos, ¿no? Sí. Os comentaba que la misión Polaris Dawn, uno de los objetivos que tiene es el llevar a cabo experimentos científicos. No sé si Fernando me puede pinchar, yo me voy a intentar mover para que él meta ese plano, ¿vale? El ojo biónico, no sé si podemos mostrar, Fernando, la lentilla que van a llevar, ¿vale? Pues la lentilla que van a llevar los astronautas en la nave, podéis ver que ¿cuál es el objetivo de todo esto? Bueno, os contaba que existe una condición ocasionada por los viajes espaciales en las que, debido a la gravedad, a la no gravedad, al estar flotando en el espacio, los líquidos corporales pues cambian de ubicación. ¿Qué ocurre? Que nosotros, el ojo es, bueno, pues la retina, todo lo que hay en el interior está rodeado de unos líquidos, y esos líquidos, al estar con gravedad cero, pues se desplazan hacia el interior del cráneo. Eso provoca problemas de visión, provoca problemas de inflamación del nervio óptico, y lo que están intentando entender, desarrollada por la universidad, pues medir con esos microchips que podéis ver ahí los cambios de presión que se producen para ver qué se podría hacer al respecto. Deciros que en este momento Sunita Williams, que es una de las astronautas que está en la misión en la Estación Espacial Internacional, la famosa astronauta que subió con la Starliner y que se han quedado allí porque la Starliner ha vuelto sola, pues Sunita Williams en este momento se está enfrentando a esos problemas oculares de los que hablábamos. Tener en cuenta que ellos iban para una misión de corto plazo y se van a pasar ahí 6-7 meses, ¿no? Esto es algo común en los astronautas, y este experimento lo que se trata es bueno, pues de ver precisamente qué se podría hacer al respecto. ¿Qué más cosas podemos comentar, Fernando? ¿Quién? Vale, tenemos otro. Vamos a ver. Voy a intentar moverme. Esto es casi tan fino. Quieto, no te muevas. Fernando, no sé si quieres que hablemos hablábamos de los objetivos. Uno era el subir, del subir a los 1400 kilómetros, y os decía que cuando bajen a 700 y permanezcan en órbita, en estos 5 días que van a permanecer en órbita, van a probar un nuevo traje espacial. Un nuevo traje espacial que denominan EVA porque está preparado para hacer un paseo espacial, un extravehicular activity, por eso se llama EVA. No es un traje solo de interior, sino es un traje bivalente, es decir, lo van a utilizar en el interior, pero también se presuriza y van a poder hacer un paseo espacial que se va a convertir, al fin y al cabo, en el primer paseo espacial privado de la historia, ¿no? El comandante Jared Isaacman y su oficial de misión, Sarah Gillis, pues van a abrir la escotilla de esa Crew Dragon, de esa pues de esa nave, para enfrentarse al vacío del espacio. Una de las curiosidades de la Dragon, de esta nave, es que no tiene esclusa de aire, es decir, que una vez que ellos abran esa escotilla, todo el interior se va a quedar en el vacío, ¿no? Para que eso ocurra, se tienen que llevar a cabo una serie de procedimientos para garantizar la salud de los cuatro, ¿no? No solo los que salen, sino también los que se quedan dentro. ¿Qué es lo que se hace? Pues fijaos, desde muy prontito, en cuanto estén en el espacio, van a iniciar una serie de ejercicios de respiración para que el nitrógeno que se encuentra dentro de la nave vaya disminuyendo y haya un entorno rico en oxígeno, que se vaya hasta el 100% de oxígeno. Y esos trajes, de los que vamos a hablar ahora, pues van presurizados, y cuando salgan al espacio exterior, Jared Isaacman y Sarah Gillis, pues van a estar con 5 PSI, 5.1, fijaros lo que, cuando vais a inflar las ruedas, pues pensar en lo que es 5.1 de presión, que es menos que una rueda de una bici, pues lo van a llevar. ¿Qué tienen de especial estos trajes, Fernando? Yo no sé si los podemos ir mostrando. Os comentaba que es un traje, vale, nos dice que ya lo está mostrando, tenemos un traje bivalente, o válido para el interior, también para el exterior, cuando se lleve a cabo ese paseo. Luego tienen desarrollado un casco que han hecho con impresión 3D, para que se ajuste perfectamente a las medidas de la cabeza de cada uno de los astronautas. Y ese casco, lo que veis es que lleva una visera. Esa visera está hecha de policarbonato, que es un tipo de plástico especial, con un recubrimiento de cobre y también óxido indio y de estaño. Y eso tiene una doble función. Me dice Fernando que me tengo que mover. Vamos a intentar irnos más cerquita de aquí. Vamos a ver si esto es peor o mejor, Fer. Tú me dices. Igual. Yo es que creo que es la señal del edificio y que podemos hacer muy poquito. Voy a intentar mover esto un poco. Y tú me dices si esto es mejor o peor. Bueno, es que si salgo de aquí ya no sé lo que hacer. Vale, lo vuelvo a mover. Vuelvo a mover. Ok. Vale. Fer, ¿me dices si mejor o peor?
The hatch, which also gets its own leak check, and the closeout team has already departed the pad. Once that hatch was sealed, they were able to clear the area and clear the pad. And now we've been doing some weather checks as we got closer and closer to T0. So So again, we will be doing another final go, no go for launch. Before we get to that final go, no go, the next team will do an internal poll, making sure that conditions are right with Falcon 9, Dragon, the crew, the range, and the weather, of course. T-minus 1 hour until liftoff is the final evaluation checkpoint, or the last opportunity for the SpaceX team to adjust the launch time if it's needed. And with everything so far on track, let's take a moment to meet the crew that will be flying today.
The Polaris Dawn mission has many time objectives, so the Polaris program chose a crew of experts who know each other well and have a foundation of trust that they can build upon as they undertake challenges of this mission. Mission Commander Jared Rook Isaacman served as commander of Inspiration 4, the world's first all-civilian mission to space. Jared holds
for a weather update.
Go SpaceX.
Dragon, we are currently go for launch. Updated probability of violation is 20%. So with that, we are going to be pressing towards T02. We'll keep you updated if any other weather comes through.
Hey, copy that.
So as we just heard, our opportunity for launching is sounding better and better. The probability of violation for weather rules has decreased from 35% probability to 20%. So that is excellent news. Now let's talk a little bit about our mission commander, Jared Rook Isaacman. He served as commander of Inspiration 4, the world's first all-civilian mission to space. Jared holds several world records, including 2 speed around the world flights in 2008 and 2009 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He has flown in over 100 air shows as part of the Black Diamond Jet team, dedicating every performance to charitable causes. In 2011, Jared co-founded what would become the world's largest private air force, Draken International, and that trains pilots for the U.S. Armed Forces. In addition to his role as CEO of Shift 4, Jared is an accomplished pilot and astronaut with over 7,000 flight hours.
Mission pilot Scott Poteet served as mission director of Inspiration 4, and he goes by his call sign Kid. A retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, Kid served for 20 years in roles that included commander of the 64th Aggressor Squadron, Thunderbird No. 4 demonstration pilot, U.S. Air Force Weapons School graduate, operational test and evaluation pilot, and flight examiner. Kid is a command pilot with over 3,200 flying hours and has logged over 400 hours of combat time. Following his Air Force career, Kid served in various roles, including VP of Strategy at Shift 4.
Mission Specialist Sarah Cooper-Gillis is a lead space operations engineer at SpaceX, responsible for overseeing the company's astronaut training program. She helped prepare NASA astronauts for the Demo 2 and Crew 1 missions, and most recently directly trained the Inspiration 4 astronauts. Sarah is an experienced mission control operator who has supported real-time ops for Dragon's cargo resupply missions to and from the International Space Station as a navigation officer and as a crew communicator for Dragon's human spaceflight missions. In 2015, while studying at the University of Colorado Boulder, Sarah started an internship at SpaceX before moving into the astronaut training program full-time.
And to cap off the Polaris Dawn crew, mission specialist and medical officer Anna Walker-Menon, who also serves as a lead space operations engineer at SpaceX, where she manages the development of the crew operations and works in mission control as both a mission director and crew communicator. During her time at SpaceX, Anna has led the implementation of Dragon's crew capabilities and developed critical operational responses to vehicle emergencies. Prior to SpaceX, Anna worked for 7 years at NASA as a biomedical flight controller for the International Space Station. She received her bachelor's degree in mathematics and Spanish from the Texas Christian University and her master's degree in biomedical engineering from Duke University.
And that is our Polaris Dawn crew and the first SpaceX employees to fly on a SpaceX mission. Anna and Sarah also supported Inspiration 4 and actually served as trainers for the crew of that mission. So I can only imagine how incredible and the feelings that they have and how wild it is to experience a launch from the other side of the mission. Now, as the Polaris Dawn crew prepared for this mission, they had a pretty cool opportunity to sit down with a legend of spaceflight, Apollo astronaut Charlie Duke, one of only 4 surviving moonwalkers from the Apollo program. He flew on the Apollo 16 mission to the lunar surface in 1972, and more than 50 years later, he had some great advice for our crew in advance of the first ever commercial spacewalk.
We have a launch commit and we have a liftoff. The swing arm moving back.
I can see all the way to the ground, just like on the LTV. Piece of cake.
Welcome to our mission control.
Thank you very much.
We copy you down, Eagle. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
What emotions run through your head as you watch that?
For Apollo 11, it was really tense. Yeah, the tension in mission control was through the roof. You know, I was more tense in that landing when I actually did it. Because, you know, in the spacecraft, you're seeing all the systems, whereas in mission control, you're just looking at a little screen, you know, and I was never were this big. They were just little things. First off, I want to say thank you for inviting me to come out and get a briefing from y'all and maybe throw a little piece of advice every once in a while to you.
You're one of the 12 humans in history that has gotten to walk on the face of the moon, and now you're sitting here at SpaceX. I'm curious what your aspirations, your hopes, your dreams are for the future of human space exploration.
Well, I'm excited about the privatization of space. When it first came about, I was a little dubious, but then it was quickly obvious that SpaceX knew what they were doing, and I've been a big supporter of what SpaceX is doing in space, and manned and unmanned launches. I'm impressed with this facility, and the first time I've been here.
Well, sir, it is a real honor. It is a real honor to have you here and have this conversation. Polaris Dawn, sir, is the first of up to 3 missions that are contemplated. So we're going to vent down the vehicle and conduct a spacewalk. And we're going to test out a new spacesuit that the engineers at SpaceX here have been developing. It's to learn really as much about this new generation suit that SpaceX has built and then the entire operation associated with it. I'll be one of the crew members that goes outside the vehicle. Sarah will be as well. And then Kit and Anna are going to be inside the vehicle in kind of supporting capacity and be the eyes and ears of, while we're outside.
Is that visor assembly separate from your...
The whole thing is
It's all integrated.
Yeah, it's a spiral waist zipper that we don and doff the suit.
It's important to have a suit that works. I mean, it's mobile and fits.
Sir, based on your training experiences, what was the most memorable thing you went through?
Let me cover something that's very similar to y'all's, and that's the Trans-Earth EVA.
Are you ready, Charlie? Roger, copy. Looks like the old moon.
Both the Apollo 15, 16, and 17 had no problems with the Trans-Earth EVAs. It's very spectacular. I mean, the view, that was my most impressive memory, really, is to float out, and there was the Earth down here about 180,000 miles away. And my job basically was hook myself in so I don't float off and hold on. How long are you depressurized?
So for the spacewalk, based on the vehicle design and what we can support, we have about 2 hours end-to-end for both depressurizing external operations and then repressurizing the spacecraft. But we'll all get suited up, depressurize the spacecraft, and then 2 people, one at a time, will go outside, come back in before we repressurize the spacecraft.
My advice is don't let go.
That's good advice.
I wish you well, and thank you.
The goal of SpaceX is to build technologies necessary to make life multiplanetary. And this is the first time in the 4 billion-year history of Earth that it's possible to realize that goal. Missions like Polaris Dawn are helping accelerate those efforts by developing and testing technologies that will enable humans to live and work in space, while also improving life for us here and now.
I'm a total believer in the SpaceX mission and vision. I think the world is a more interesting place when you can journey among the stars. I believe that a lot of the questions that human beings have asked themselves since the beginning of time are probably out there, and we've barely scratched the surface, and SpaceX is trying to change that.
Polaris Dawn has some really ambitious objectives, and the missions that follow it will also as well. And the hopes for all of these is that we will develop technologies and test technologies that will help SpaceX ultimately achieve its long-term ambitions of making human life interplanetary.
What's really unique about the Polaris Dawn mission is it's a development mission. So not only are we taking the basic fundamentals of how to live in Dragon and operate the spacecraft, but we're now adding whole new operations for new suits, new systems, a new repressurization system in the capsule. There are whole new procedures for executing the spacewalks. We are doing incredible things, and we are changing the world, and we are making history.
The men and women of this organization, the level of intelligence, it's unmatched. And that's why we're so passionate about our mission and about what SpaceX is continuing to do with their vision to further space exploration. There's a lot of things that you can be on either side of debate on, but for sure, it's okay to put a small percentage of our resources in advancing our species, and along the way, completely change the trajectory for humans on this planet in a positive way. And we can try and fix some of the day-to-day problems too. It doesn't have to be this either or, but yet so often it is.
We're coming up on T-minus 46 minutes. The launch director and the launch team have conducted their electronic poll. The launch director has also checked with the Dragon mission director for their readiness. Everything continues to look good. We're going to be hearing some instructions from the SpaceX launch director. He'll be making announcements on the control room lockdown and protocols for hold or launch escapes. And he'll also be reminding the team that inside of T-minus 10 seconds, only the computer can abort the launch. Now, once the LD, the launch director, gives these instructions, they will clear the team to proceed with moving the crew arm away from the launch vehicle. You can see the arm is in the access position right now. But once we get
complete, the team is ready for crew access arm retract, propellant loading, and launch. Both control rooms will go into lockdown at T-minus 45 minutes and remain in that state until the launch escape system is disarmed. All operators are remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system. Following insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. For non-urgent no-go conditions, breathe the C or LD, and they'll approve during the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off, relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual escape flight rules. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
We've heard the instructions. We're waiting to hear them inform the crew that access arm retract has started. We're also watching on the monitors as we see the crew access arm, waiting for it to begin into motion. Now, once we get through this, then we will be arming the launch escape system. And there's a view.
Access arm retraction has started.
Crew access arm retraction has started. Once that's all the way back in the stowed position, we'll arm the launch escape system, proceed down to propellant load starting at T-minus 35 minutes. One other update, weather probability of violation, as we mentioned, down to 20%, and they just checked with the launch weather officer. Nothing appears to be in the area that would be a risk to T0 in just over 44 minutes. And Jesse, you can...
Bueno, estoy conectando con el teléfono, es prácticamente imposible. Yo creo que no tiene sentido seguir intentando mostraros algo porque cada vez que intentamos sacar la cámara fuera se nos cae todo. Así que lo mejor es que veáis el lanzamiento desde el link que está pinchando Fernando. Voy a salir a la terraza para ver si podemos ver la vista del cohete que os había prometido. Vamos a ver si lo podéis ver. Ese puntito blanco que tenéis allí, pues es el cohete. Estamos, yo diría que son 4 kilómetros. Decíos que, claro, estamos a una distancia de 4 kilómetros por el ruido y las vibraciones son también peligrosas para los seres humanos. Así que, como os decía, lo hemos intentado. Intentaremos en el futuro mejorar todavía más, buscar, no sé, si un satélite o qué hacer, ya será lo siguiente. Pero bueno, vamos a dejar pinchada la señal de X, disfrutar del lanzamiento desde allí, yo lo voy a disfrutar desde aquí. Y bueno, pues al final del programa, mi amigo Fernando Sierra, como prometido, pinchará quién es el ganador del libro. Así que los que permanezcáis hasta el final del programa, es el libro firmado por Anna Menon, Kisses from Space, pues el ganador se llevará ese libro. Y también vamos a sortear, Fernando, que no lo había dicho, un parche de órbita infinita que nos han llegado hoy. Por toda vuestra paciencia, a todos los que hayáis llegado hasta aquí, pues deciros que también vamos a sortear un parche. No sé si Fernando podrá hacer 2 sorteos, no tengo ni idea, pero bueno, lo vamos a intentar. Y si no, en el próximo respeto entregaremos las 2 cosas, ya veremos. Gracias por estar ahí y os dejamos con la señal pinchada para que lo podáis disfrutar. Creo que quedan unos 45 minutos. Yo voy a beber algo, recoger el equipo y disfrutarlo también en directo. Que vosotros lo vais a ver también perfectamente en vuestras pantallas. Gracias por estar ahí.
System is now armed should something happen that requires Dragon to execute an emergency escape. If something were to happen to the Falcon 9 or the pad right now, the system is ready to go. There's another key reason. Once we got the crew access arm back, we went right into arming the launch escape system, because once that system is armed, should we need to have the crew leave but depart via the crew access arm, that arm took a minute or so to retract. It can actually come back into the support position much faster than that. So there's a high-speed mode, but that high-speed mode requires that we be in the armed configuration so that it'll be enabled. So if that was needed, the crew could then leave the hatch, go down the arm, and depending upon the direction, they can take the elevators. The elevators are currently at level 255. When the ground team left the pad, they send the elevators back up. So if the crew needs them, they're right there. And of course, we have the slide wire basket system on 39A is another way. So there's several ways if the crew had to leave. But the good news is, coming up 40 minutes before launch, everything continues to go well, technically, on Falcon 9 and Dragon. And it looks like the weather has begun to cooperate now. Now, next major event coming up at T-minus 35 minutes will be the start of propellant loading on Falcon 9. Once we get into that, then we're committed to the T0, even though there's still more time in the window and a third launch opportunity if we need it. We would not be able to take advantage of that if we get propellant going into the Falcon 9. Again, the views from 39A, the arm is retracted. You can't tell it, but launch escape system is armed on the Dragon spacecraft. Quiet right now on the nets. Team is mostly just waiting for the clock to get to 35.
And this is getting pretty exciting. You know, we were very close to this point about an hour and a half ago. And again, we did make that call due to weather to move the T0. And we did that prior to propellant loading, because once we start propellant loading, we're basically committed to that T0, which was a great call, again, from the team on monitoring the weather and going for the second T0, which has a much better probability of good weather at the T0. So very, very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. We were operating at a 60% probability of violation, i.e. 40% favorable at the original T0. Called it off just before prop loading. And now, fast forward to hour and a half, 2-ish hours later, we're now closer to 20%, or not closer, we are at 20% probability of violation, so 80% favorable. So definitely a significant increase. And as you said, stepping into prop load is a pretty strong vote of confidence that we're going to be able to make it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, there is always that 20%. But we are optimistic that we're going to see our Polaris Dawn crew in orbit sooner than later.
And it shows, this is a perfect example of, why we have all these procedures and these milestones where we're checking in throughout the countdown to make sure that, we have opportunities to make the right decision, again, for safety being the number one thing that we're always looking out for, especially with crew on board, but just for any mission. And we were able to...
tanks will vent for the start of propellant load in 5 seconds.
Yeah, we'll be hearing call-outs throughout the countdown up to the crew to let them know what's happening, both Falcon 9 and Dragon. And then we'll also hear call-outs on Esta.
Yeah, and the Corps is keeping them updated so that they, there's going to be new sounds coming inside of the vehicle, and the Corps can keep them updated since they won't be able to see what's happening, but they might be able to hear it. So they'll be able to monitor, those familiar sounds or those expected sounds as the Corps is updating them with each milestone.
Now, our next major event, as we've mentioned, is the start of propellant loading onto the Falcon 9. We'll hear that starting at T-minus 35 minutes. We also may hear the call-out launch auto sequence has started. That is the ground computer program that controls the last 35 minutes. And we should also, as we mentioned, hear the launch director call out to the crew that propellant loading has begun. Propellant loading sequence on the Falcon 9 begins with loading fuel onto both the first and the second stages. That's the RP1 kerosene fuel that we use. We'll also begin with liquid oxygen loading onto the first stage. Now, the second stage fuel loading will finish up fairly quickly at about T-minus 20.5 minutes. And then 4 minutes after that, we'll begin loading liquid oxygen onto the second stage. But right now, T-minus 35 minutes, 30 seconds, everything continues to go well. We're waiting for the handover from the countdown master sequence to the launch automatic sequence to begin propellant loading. Once that begins, that'll commit us to a launch early this morning here at Pad 39A in Florida. We'll listen in now for the start of propellant loading.
The launch auto sequence has started.
And great call out there. We just heard that the launch auto sequence has begun. This means that propellant loading has begun on Falcon 9. Now we are T-minus 34 minutes and 45 seconds from liftoff. Dragon was loaded with its propellants about a couple weeks ago, just a few miles down the road at what we call Dragon Land. In order to fly, Dragon needs a fuel and an oxidizer. And for the fuel, we use monomethylhydrazine, or MMH, and nitrogen tetroxide, or NTO, for the oxidizer. Now, together, these propellants feed the Draco engines that maneuver Dragon on orbit, as well as the 8 Super Draco engines that would power the launch escape system in an abort scenario.
And again, now that fueling for Falcon 9 has started, that means the 8 Super Draco engines inside Dragon are ready, if needed, to launch the capsule away from the Falcon 9 rocket in an instant, should there be any kind of emergency associated with the rocket or the pad.
Now, some of you are very familiar with the vehicles on the launch pad today, but for those of you who aren't, no worries. We're about to make you instant experts. Now, on the left side of your screen is a live view of our Falcon 9 rocket with the Dragon spacecraft on top. Together, they stand about 229 feet tall. Falcon 9, of course, is a reusable 2-stage rocket, which means it's kind of like 2 rockets in one, the first stage and the second stage. The first stage is the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle. You can see soot from the previous 3 missions that this booster has flown, and those missions include NASA Crew 8 as well as 2 Starlink missions. The first stage is responsible for accelerating Falcon and Dragon through Earth's atmosphere and into space. To do that, it has 9 Merlin engines at the bottom of the stage. Prior to liftoff, the Falcon 9 first stage is loaded up with nearly 1 million pounds of fuel and liquid oxygen. At liftoff, the Merlin engines use these propellants to provide the first stage with a thrust greater than 5 747 airplanes at full power. These engines consume about 700 gallons of fuel per second. The first stage accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space, and then separates from the rest of the rocket at just about 2.5 minutes into flight. From there, the first stage will do what no other orbital-class rocket in the world can do. It will make its way back down to Earth and target a landing on our drone ship. Just read the instructions, which you can see there on your screen. And this drone ship is currently parked and holding position a couple hundred miles downrange in the Atlantic Ocean. Our drone ships are essentially autonomous-powered spaceports, and they allow our rocket to land offshore. For reference, our drone ships are about the size of a football field, so while they may look small on screen, they're actually pretty big in real life. Reusability is a critical part of our goal of making life multiplanetary. And to that end, we're working toward qualifying our fleet of Falcon boosters and fairings to support up to 40 missions each. As mentioned previously, Falcon 9 is a 2-stage rocket, and above the first stage is the second stage. The second stage has a single Merlin vacuum, or MVAC engine, and this engine ignites after stage 1 separates from stage 2. The second stage is essentially a smaller version of the first stage, and while the first stage gets us out of the Earth's atmosphere and away from the extreme forces of gravity, the second stage is designed to operate in the vacuum of space and deliver payloads, like Dragon today, to their target drop-off orbit. And of course, we have a great team here at SpaceX that will be monitoring both Falcon 9 and Dragon after liftoff.
And like Atticus said, we have teams here in Mission Control, Hawthorne, and that team is responsible for close monitoring of the crew and Dragon every step of the way as the spacecraft orbits the planet along its customized flight path. On console or headset are a number of positions who are monitoring the health of the vehicle and crew. The mission director, responsible for mission success, is in charge of that room. And the person that you'll hear talking to the astronauts, and the person we have been hearing speaking to the astronauts, is the crew.
Stage 1 cryo-helium load has started.
The Crew Operations and Resources Engineer, or CORE. The other positions are focused on things like navigation and control of the vehicle, avionics, software, propulsion, life support systems, and communications with ground segments.
Different members of the SpaceX team will rotate through these positions throughout the mission to ensure 24/7 coverage of the crew and Dragon through splashdown, which will be about 5 days from now. And it's worth mentioning that 2 of our crew members, Anna and Sarah, have sat in these very seats before as part of the SpaceX team. Anna served in mission control during multiple Dragon missions, including Demo 2, Crew 1, CRS 22 and 23, Crew 3 and Crew 4, as well as Axiom 1. And Sarah has supported real-time operations for Dragon's cargo resupply missions to and from the International Space Station as a navigation officer and as a crew communicator for Dragon's human spaceflight missions. And now they'll get to see what it's like from the other side inside of Dragon.
Although Anna and Sarah have trained astronauts for SpaceX missions, they were not exempt from going through that exact training themselves. The Polaris Dawn crew has gone through the same rigorous SpaceX training as our NASA astronauts. Plus, they also had to train to perform an EVA, or an extracurricular vehicle activity.
We had an opportunity to talk to Anna, Jared, Kid, and Sarah about their training experiences, and here's what they had to say.
The bulk of the training has been rightfully focused on the EVA, or the spacewalks. In a development program, you don't know what you need to train to. Like, how can we run pressurized operations, simulate microgravity, but also have like a simulator that's powered, with hatches to get in and out of, so we don't have to submerge that in a pool.
We looked at a suspension system solution where we can set up a physics model that allows you to pressurize the suit, put on a harness, and then a hoist will lift a suited crew member up. And you can basically use one finger and you press down and your whole body will move up, just like in space.
It allowed us to really put into practice the different piece-by-piece steps that are necessary to complete this operation safely.
One aspect of our training has been scuba diving. The buoyancy allows us to kind of experience a different environment. The lack of communication is a challenge associated with scuba diving.
You rely on alternate forms of communication. You'll use different hand signals to communicate, like I'm okay, you're okay. So I would say scuba diving has a ton of great training lessons that are directly applicable to our spacewalk.
I have to say, I think the max fun here was the skydiving we did at the Air Force Academy. That was some of the best training ever.
When I dropped out of that airplane, sitting in the airplane as I was going up, I felt those nerves, all of that rush of emotions that comes with, recognizing that you are about to do a really high consequence operation.
And you're standing out, leaning into the wind, out of an aircraft, and then you just let go and you fall. It was incredible training, some of the most memorable training we've done.
For the centrifuge training, the purpose is to go through both a launch and a reentry as well as a launch escape mission profile in this human centrifuge that's spinning you around and imparting forces on your body that are similar to the ones that we will experience when we go through those operations actually in space.
When you're in space, you have to deal with the circumstances that you're dealt. Similar fashion is climbing a mountain. You're on the side of a mountain, it's taken days to get to where you're at, approaching the summit. You're dehydrated, you're hungry. You learn to manage those stressors. And those are all good preparation techniques in getting ready for space exploration.
We've had it all. We've had unbelievable, highs, and we've had, lows. It's just been a great 2 years of growth. Some of the best times of my life.
Before the segment, I called it an extracurricular activity. My brain is clearly tired. It's extravehicular activity. And as we mentioned earlier, much of the training that the crew went through was to prepare them to perform that extravehicular activity, or an EVA. Because Dragon does not have an airlock, the entire cabin will be depressurized. So essentially, all 4 astronauts will be performing the EVA. Jared and Sarah will exit the spacecraft to perform their tasks, while Kid and Anna remain inside to conduct their experiments and act as the ears and eyes. The EVA will last about 2 hours from the time that the cabin air is vented to when it is repressurized again.
As they prepare for the EVA, the crew...
Stage 2 cryohelium load has started.
Good call-outs there. As they prepare for the EVA, the crew will go through a pre-breathing procedure, which will involve slowly dropping the atmospheric pressure of Dragon while increasing the concentration of oxygen in the air. This process is similar to what is known as a safety stop in the diving community. This will give their bodies plenty of time to acclimate to the difference in pressure ahead of the EVA.
SpaceX designed the EVA suits for the Polaris Dawn crew, and they'll wear it during the spacewalk. The EVA suits protect the crew inside the spacecraft while also allowing them to leave the spacecraft when needed.
Upgrades include new joint designs that remain soft until pressurized while maintaining mobility, improved thermal management, and an upgraded helmet with an exterior coating that acts like a sun visor, along with a camera and heads-up display that provides information on the status of the suit during the spacewalk.
Let's take a look at the making of the suits that our crew will be wearing during the first ever commercial EVA.
An EVA suit is an extravehicular activity suit, which is a spacesuit that can go outside of the spacecraft to do a spacewalk. We started with the IVA suit that we have, the intravehicular activity suit, as a kind of starting point, and looked at it and said, what would we have to change about this to be able to support a spacewalk? So the first is mobility. The crew will have to do a lot of moving around inside of Dragon to get outside and do the spacewalk. We had to add in new joints and new features in the suit to allow them enhanced mobility while the suit's pressurized.
When a crew member is pressurized in the suit, the soft portions of the suit become rigid. They need actual flexure and rotational joints to allow them to move around. It's kind of like a suit of armor made of fabric. We innovated in flexure joints to allow easy bending at the elbows and the knees, as well as a collapsible rotator joint that exists on the shoulder, which allows the suit to remain nearly fully soft, but when pressurized is a rotational bearing.
The difference between the IVA and the EVA suit is that on the IVA suit, the zipper system location is in the inseam. But since we needed to have lots of mobility on our EVA suit, that was not their choice. By moving the zipper system from the inseam to the waist, we mitigated the risk of the stress of the zipper.
And another big element was also the thermal side of things. The crew is obviously exposed to a much more extreme thermal environment during the EVA. So we want to make sure that the inside of the suit is comfortable for them, and that as they interface with parts of the vehicle, that is safe for them to touch as well.
The EVA suit is built and designed here at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. We wanted to have something that's easy manufactured that we can handle here in-house. So we developed this new material, so it's fabric-based.
We actually added a new layer to the suit, which we refer to as the Faraday layer. And this is a conductive cage around the suit that shields the suit from external electric fields.
The helmet on the EVA suit looks very similar to the IVA suit, but it is really an all-new design of that helmet. It's much more robust from a thermal structural perspective, since it would be taking more extreme temperatures.
We are really excited to introduce this new single-pane visor helmet to the world of spacesuits. The EVA suit visor is made of polycarbonate and is coated with copper and ITO, or indium tenoxide. These two coatings together reflect the sun away from the crew, as well as reflecting infrared heat back to the crew when they are facing deep space. Our suit has a HUD, or heads-up display, which is a small display screen in the helmet, which is transparent, which allows the crew to see through the display to have unfettered access during their EVA. But it also provides critical telemetry to the crew, so pressure, temperature, relative humidity.
We're trying to improve the technology and streamline it in one way, and at the same time, we're also trying to get it more and more manufacturable with each generation. The ultimate goal is that you can put on a spacesuit and go out and get work done anywhere in the solar system and not feel like you're wearing anything more than you normally wear every day.
Between 190 to 700 kilometers above Earth, the Polaris Dawn crew will attempt the first ever commercial spacewalk. Here's how it all came together.
EVA stands for extravehicular activity, and it's any sort of operation in space where a human is getting out of the spacecraft. So in the case of Polaris Dawn, we're going to be testing the mobility of the suit. We're going to see if the in-space operation matches the training we've done here in Hawthorne. There's really a lot of different things that can happen during an EVA, and this is the first step for Dragon and SpaceX.
When I first started working at SpaceX, I never thought I'd be training a crew to do an EVA. It's brand new, it's so unique, we've never done anything like this before, and so we wanted to make sure we had the best possible training program for this mission.
We want to see if we can train a spacewalk on Earth in a way that's representative of what it feels like in space.
Even though only 2 people are going to be going outside during this first EVA, 4 crew will be in EVA suits going down to vacuum.
Dragon was always designed to vent to full vacuum, but we've never taken full Dragon capsule down to vacuum, and this will be the first time we do it in space.
We actually put crew into a chamber at Johnson Space Center in Houston and had them live the exact profile that they will experience, and making sure that no one actually experienced decompression sickness.
We have a couple new training assets for Polaris Dawn to train the EVA specifically. The suspension system that we have is situated on top of the platform of our capsule simulator. The lines drop through the hatch. They attach to a single crew member inside the capsule. We can lift them up and get them situated so that they can egress the capsule and perform their tasks at Skywalker, the mobility aid.
The Skywalker, what's amazing to me is a lot of people are going to think it's a metallic structure just bolted to the top of Dragon, but a lot of development effort, testing went into the Skywalker. So we actually used similar technology as we have in the Super Draco chambers to apply a thermal barrier coating to the outside of the Skywalker. that is going to be a really, really amazing mobility aid on the front end of Dragon.
We also developed a sideways simulator, so we flip the hatch on its side.
In the event the hatch fails to close, they can manually close the hatch. We had them do that in a sideways suspension system, so gravity isn't helping them close or helping them open that hatch mechanism.
It's new development for Dragon, it's new development for SpaceX and the industry as a whole. So this is a great example of where Polaris Dawn is forcing the team to innovate in a way that adds safety and reliability to every Dragon mission going forward.
That's this huge challenge for us to go solve, but that's also an opportunity for us to solve the problems that we have to go figure out anyway for our larger goals, like putting people on Mars.
The Polaris Dawn objectives are the first step towards that ultimate flight with humans inside of Starship, which is right on the SpaceX development path that we have towards getting to the moon and Mars.
All right, we are T-minus 17 and just under a half minutes until liftoff of Polaris Dawn. This mission will fly higher than any Dragon mission to date. There'll be lots of research experiments performed while the crew is on orbit. And most notably, they're going to perform the first ever commercial spacewalk. We're super excited to see the clock continue to count down. The crew is in their seats. The vehicle is actually being loaded with propellants as we speak. That began at T-minus 35 minutes. The launch system is armed, and we have gotten the okay to go from the crew. They are ready to go to space.
Yeah, it's super exciting. We've got their new EVA suits on board with the crew. This will be the first time that we've ever flown these EVA spacesuits, which I think is...
LOX load has started.
Which I think is one of the most exciting parts about this mission. And we did get a good call that stage 2 LOX liquid oxygen loading is now beginning on the vehicle.
Now, this mission will orbit Earth for about 5 days. And in addition to the first commercial spacewalk, it'll be the first time that we will be utilizing our newly designed Skywalker hardware, which I love the name. And it is a mobility aid that Sarah and Jared will use in their EVA suit testing during their EVA. So we are very much looking forward to the launch in just over 15 and a half minutes now. And everything so far looking good. We had much improved weather conditions when our first T0 occurred was 12:38. Wasn't so great. Here we are sometime later, and we're looking at a 20% favorability. So as you can see on your screen, like I said, about 15 minutes from the liftoff of Polaris Dawn. Lots of excitement building here in the building in Hawthorne, just outside of Mission Control. Now, I can only imagine what the crew is feeling as the clock counts down. Now, as we all wait together, let's hear from some of the crew of the Inspiration 4 mission as they reflect on what they were feeling just before their mission liftoff.
I gotta say, right now, launching, people always ask me if I was afraid as soon as the engines lit and started taking off. And I was like, no, I was ready. But for me, you know, liftoff was really about concentrating on my job as the mission pilot. And I was wondering, because you guys, you know, were able to kind of sit there and enjoy it and sense it. How was it for you?
Launch was the most fun I've ever had. I was just so excited, and people had been asking me, like, are you going to be nervous? And I thought I would be, but I just, again, I kept waiting to get nervous, and it didn't come. And then they're counting down from 10, and I remember saying, let's do this. Oh. And I might have had an expletive in there too. But then, you know, we're hearing the 10 count, and it's delayed because of the delay from Mission Control, and so we're hearing, like, they're on maybe 2 whenever we're actually lifting off. Right. But Jared was giving us his own count, and I remember he said something like, "All right, guys, get ready." And then we felt this big jolt, and then of course a lot of G-forces that came on really quickly. But it was just so smooth, and I remember I had the biggest smile on my face. Like I was having so much fun.
Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't just sitting there idly going for a ride. It was thinking about, okay, what am I hearing? What's that pressure I'm feeling through my chest? Because this is happening probably just once, right? And so how do you share this? How do you tell someone what you're going through in this moment if you're not paying attention to everything? And so that's what I was really trying to do was, look between my toes at the window or look over at your screen, Cyan, and see, where we are.
I was wondering if you could see how much you could see, because I couldn't see out the, I was laser focused on listening to Jared and watching the monitor, and I was surprised at how smooth it was, because I was expecting for it to be a little bit more, where the monitors are going like this, but it wasn't at all. But I always wondered, did you look between your toes and see? Could you see out? Were you able to? I don't think I did.
I remember right before we launched, just seeing it was very dark. But I don't think we could really see anything except darkness.
Yeah, I don't think we really could see anything except, and it wasn't until we got into space that we made our first orbit around it, where the sun was, rising from the other side of the Earth, that we actually got our first light from the sun enter the capsule.
Yeah.
Yes, and I remember saying out loud, "Is that the Earth?" And obviously, what else would it have been? But it was just so unbelievable, I had to say it out loud.
Yeah, interesting, the comment about first light. We'll be launching about an hour before sunrise at Cocoa Beach, Kennedy Space Center. But as they head into orbit, I wonder how long it'll take before we get sunlight into the capsules. They're heading northeast towards the sunrise.
Yeah, the crew is certainly prepared for some pretty amazing views on ascent. We just heard from the Inspiration 4 crew about some of their experience with their launch. I absolutely love hearing them describe just how smooth the ride is. That's always so surprising to me. We have 9 M1Ds, 1.7 million pounds of thrust, but yet somehow the ride is still smooth. That's just amazing.
I was actually just looking back at my Inspiration 4 liftoff notes in my handy-dandy notebook, and Sarah, who is our mission specialist on the far right-hand side of your screen there, was actually the core for liftoff of Inspiration 4. So I'm sure she's having a great 360 moment. Now, as we approach the last few minutes before liftoff, we have some well wishes for the crew.
Anna, Sarah, Kid, Jared.
From the Dragonflight software team.
On behalf of the Dragon Propulsion Build team.
Dragon Avionics here.
The materials team.
For the Únete building team. The Draco team.
The Dragon Propulsion Engineering team.
Falcon Flight Reliability.
From the Falcon Build Reliability Engineering team to Polaris Dawn.
We're so excited for you on this Polaris Dawn mission. We're wishing you the best of luck from McGregor.
Thanks for allowing us the opportunity to do a lot of testing.
Thank you for Flying Dragon.
Please remember to keep your hands, arms, legs, and feet inside the vehicle at all times.
May Falcon and Dragon propel you to unimaginable heights.
We know our engines will get you there safe.
Go fly higher than Dragon's ever flown before. And hope you enjoy your internet in space.
Good luck.
Safe travels and
go Polaris Dawn.
Go Polaris Dawn.
Godspeed Polaris Dawn.
Go Polaris Dawn.
We're waiting to hear Core talking to the crew, configure crew displays, and give them the farewell message.
Enjoy the journey and go safely.
To our SpaceX family, thank you. Today is all of our mission. You are launching with us. So many more space who have gone into the stage. This is the dawn of a new future in space.
Coming up on T-minus 9 minutes and counting. Displays are configured for launch. We've heard from the crew. Core is giving them the ready to launch message. Now coming up here, as we launch, you're going to hear some call outs, possibly stage 1A or mode 1 alpha. These are abort modes that just let the crew know as we're flying what they should be prepared for in case they had to execute an emergency escape from the Falcon 9. Don't expect that, but they are trained, and that's When you hear 1A, that means they've lifted off. 1B, you might hear, that'll come late in the ascent as we're throttling down the Merlins on the first stage. And then when we're on second stage, you'll hear 2A and eventually Shannon, which is a call out for Ireland that tells the crew that they can cross the North Atlantic. And then finally we get into orbit and everything gets disabled and Dragon will separate. But right now, coming up on T-minus 8 minutes, everything continues to go well.
At T-minus 7 seconds, we should hear the call out that stage 1 engine chill has started. At this point in time, when we hear that, we'll know that we're beginning to flow a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen through the first stage engines. This helps to basically pre-chill the engine hardware prior to the full flow of that super chilled liquid oxygen. This helps the ignition sequence and helps to avoid any thermal shock to the hardware. At this point in time, Falcon continuing to undergo its propellant loading operations. And standing by for the call out for that engine chill initiation.
Engine chill has started.
And great news there. As Kate mentioned, engine chill has begun. And we are loading propellants on Falcon 9's first and second stage. Second stage propellant loading for RP1 has completed. We're getting close to wrapping up propellant loading on stage 1. And while RP1 will be completed around the T-minus 6 minute mark, liquid oxygen loading will continue on both first and second stage as we get closer to the T0. So we should hear a call
Stage
out.
1 RP1 load is complete.
Perfect timing. Stage 1 RP1, or the fuel for the Falcon 9 vehicle, has completed on the first stage.
Now coming up next at around T-minus 5 minutes, we should hear a call out that Dragon has transitioned to configure for terminal count. This is similar to the startup phase of the count for Falcon. It's essentially when the vehicle takes over control of the count and starts to operate on internal power and on internal computers. So of course, Falcon 9 enters the startup phase at T-minus 1 minute. And Dragon will transition to configure for terminal count at T-minus 5 minutes. Got a great view right now of both Dragon on the left side of your screen and our 4 crew members on the right. We are now approaching the final minutes of the countdown here.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
So we've heard the call out, Dragon's configured for the last 5 minutes of the count. We're also pressurizing the second stage propellant tanks, first stage tanks. The strong back retract will be coming up next.
Strong back is retracting.
All right, so there's that call out. We should begin to see it retract slightly from Falcon 9. LOX load continues on both first and second stage. Fuel loading is complete on first and second stage. We expect the LOX load to complete on first stage at T-minus 3 minutes and complete on second stage around T-minus 2 minutes.
Yeah, we do try and load the liquid oxygen as close to T0 as possible. This keeps the liquid oxygen is at cryo temperature, so keeps it as cold as possible, which allows it to be as dense as we possibly can keep it while we're loading the tanks. That allows us to get a little bit more liquid oxygen into those tanks. And as Kate mentioned, at T-minus 3 minutes, we should see stage 1 liquid oxygen loading completing. And at T-minus 2 minutes, that will be stage 2 liquid oxygen loading completion. And once we hit that T-minus 2 minute mark, that will conclude propellant loading for Falcon 9. We are coming up here just about 10 seconds or so for that call out of stage 1 liquid oxygen loading.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
Okay, there's the call out.
Dragon is in terminal count and on internal power.
Dragon's on internal power. First stage, propellant tanks are loaded. Next major event, approximately T-minus 2 minutes, liquid oxygen load completes on the second stage. After that, at about T-minus 1 minute and 30 seconds or so, we will tell the crew to expect loud venting as we depressurize and drain the lines up the side of the strongback. And then as we get down inside the last minute 45 and then 1 minute, we'll get Dragon into countdown. Falcon 9 computers will go to startup. Waiting for the call out now for liquid oxygen.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And there we go, LOX loading complete on second stage. All major propellant activities are complete. Dragon
is in auto idle.
Dragon's gone to auto idle, one of the states in its flight computer. We'll begin venting down the lines.
Gas closeouts are starting. Expect loud venting.
There we go. So the plume you see coming off of the strong back here, that's normal. As we come up on T-minus 1 minute, we'll hear Dragon computers in the countdown, Falcon 9 computers in the countdown, flight termination system armed. And then we'll hear the goes. So let's listen in to the last 66 seconds of the countdown.
FTS is armed, Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling.
Dragon is in countdown.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Send that, SpaceX.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, and go Falcon, go Polaris.
Copy, 1 Alpha.
Vehicle switching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
T-plus 35 seconds into the Polaris Dawn mission, flying crew on board Dragon and Falcon 9 to new heights.
Power and telemetry nominal.
And we're throttling down in preparation for max Q. Next call out, the vehicle supersonic. And there on the left side, we've got the Polaris Dawn crew.
Supersonic.
Thumbs up from the pilot on the left side there.
Max Q.
We're throttled back up to power.
1 Bravo.
And we heard the call out 1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
That just tells the crew what would happen should they need to initiate anything. But right now, everybody making nominal callouts on Falcon 9. Nice views from the ground camera and nice view from inside Dragon.
MVAC chill is underway.
The announcement lets us know we've begun the final chill of the second stage engine in preparation for its activity coming up at about T plus 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Two minutes into flight. Everything continues to look good. We'll have, in half a minute, 3 major activities. Shutdown of the 9 Merlin 1D engines, stage separation,
throttle down,
and then ignition of the second stage engine. Throttle down, we're holding a constant acceleration now for the crew, just below 4 Gs. See, we're coming up 70 kilometers. Preparing for MECO.
Main engine cut off.
2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed. Copy, 2 Alpha.
MVAC ignition.
As you can tell by the cheers behind us and the views on your screen, the first stage booster now on its way to attempt landing on Just Read the Instructions. Second stage there on the right-hand side of your screen. You can see that the first stage has not yet reached its apogee. You can see the altitude there. Lots of thumbs up there from, from pilot Scott Kid Poteet. Now 3.5 minutes into the Polaris Dawn mission. First stage continuing to make its way up to its apogee. We'll see that altitude begin to slow down.
Dragon SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Great news there, indicating
Dragon copy.
that the second stage trajectory is looking good. Now the grid fins have deployed on the first stage. If we get first stage views, we might be able to see the Florida coast in the background. Oh, they're right there. Yeah, we sure can. Once again, our drone ship is attempting to land on, our booster is attempting to land on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. Now, the next event coming up will be the entry burn, taking place around T plus 7.5 minutes. This burn will utilize 3 of the engines on the first stage. That helps to slow the booster down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere.
Dragon SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Dragon copies.
Following the entry burn, we will see the landing burn, and that'll be around T plus 9 minutes. That one will be just a single engine burn. And that will bring the booster down for a soft landing on our drone ship. Around the same time as that, we expect to see Dragon be injected into orbit. Everything continuing to look good for second stage there on the right-hand side of your screen. Beautiful glow with that MVAC engine nozzle. We can see the crew settling
Dragon
quite...
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Dragon copies.
Crew seems pretty comfortable there at T plus 6 minutes. They're at about 4 Gs. And everything looks good. First stage continuing its descent back down to planet Earth. We can see the crew remain with their visors down in the locked position. That'll remain that way until they are in orbit. Everything continuing to look great with the second stage engine burn there, as well as the
Dragon SpaceX trajectory nominal.
Dragon copies.
We're about 30 seconds away from the first stage entry burn. This is the first of 2 burns that the first stage will perform. Designed to help reduce the amount of drag experienced by the first stage.
Stage 2 FTSS saved.
All right, standing by for entry burn begin on the first stage, there on the left-hand side of your screen.
And right on time, you can see on your left-hand screen that the entry burn has begun. There's 3 engines lit on that first stage vehicle. And this is about a 29-second burn and helps slow the vehicle down as it's re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. There you can see that the engines have now shut down on that first stage. That concludes the entry burn. And the cool part about this, with the stage 1 vehicle returning back to Earth, is we get to fully utilize the atmosphere. The atmosphere actually...
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
The atmosphere actually scrubs about 70% of the velocity on the vehicle. So we use that entry burn to help slow the vehicle down. Then we utilize the atmosphere and the drag from the atmosphere to slow the vehicle down. And then we do have 1 single burn for the landing burn.
Copy. Shannon.
And next up will be SECA 1. And that is second stage engine cutoff 1, and that'll be on the second stage. That MVAC engine on your right-hand screen will shut down and allow the vehicle with Dragon attached to coast.
MVAC shut down.
And there's that shutdown. And the landing burn on the first stage should be starting up here momentarily. And there it is. Landing burn has begun for...
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
Dragon SpaceX launch escape system disarmed.
Copy that, SpaceX, and we show the scene.
And a lot of events happening right there, but you can see that the stage 1 vehicle has touched down. Just read the instructions. A very excited crowd there. Here in Hawthorne, we've also confirmed MVAC engine shutdown and orbital insertion of the second stage with the crew on board.
Yeah, honestly, a pretty impressive crowd for 2:30 in the morning here. We can see the crew enjoying their first taste of microgravity there on the left-hand side of your screen. Now that the MVAC engine has shut down, they are able to just kind of float free. We might catch a glimpse of the 0G indicator. Can't quite tell if they've... Oh, it looks like it's in the upper right-hand corner. It'll come back into view here. Once again, they will keep their visors on until given the okay by core here on the ground. At this point in time, the Dragon and the Dragon trunk remain attached to the second stage. Second stage is basically safing itself in preparation for the separation from the Dragon trunk. Of course, the trunk will remain attached to the Dragon capsule all the way up until the point in which we begin re-entry operations. The trunk is what will help provide power to the Dragon capsule while it is on orbit using its solar arrays. Looks like our first clear view of planet Earth there, our first of many for this mission. And the next event coming up will be the separation of the Dragon from the second stage. I believe this view here is, yep, it's of the trunk. We can see it separating from the second stage. A gorgeous view. We can see that Polaris Dawn.
Dragon separation confirmed.
And copy that, SpaceX, we show the same.
Polaris Dawn flying free into the sunrise. We're now at T plus 13 minutes and 5 seconds into the mission. Next major event will be nose cone deploy.
Dragon, SpaceX. Today you embark on a journey not just for yourselves, but for all of humanity. Each of you has trained tirelessly and prepared rigorously for this moment, the moment where we reach higher into space than ever before. As you gaze towards the North Star, remember that your courage lights the path for future explorers. We trust in your skills, your bravery, and your teamwork to carry out the mission that lies ahead. Know that the entire team back here is with you every step, watching, supporting, and cheering you on as you walk into space. We are sending you hugs from the ground. Godspeed, Polaris Dawn crew. May you make history and come home safely. Now words from our CE.
Dragon, CE, welcome to orbit. The Falcon team is honored to have helped you start your incredible journey. We hope you enjoyed the ride. The whole SpaceX family is looking up to you. Godspeed and good luck.
LD, CE, message received. We appreciate the kind words. We wouldn't be on this journey without all 14,000 of you back at SpaceX and everyone else cheering us on. We appreciate it, and we're going to get to work now.
Some really nice words there from our tonight's launch director, Frank Messina, who, fun fact, was also the launch director on Inspiration 4, as well as chief engineer for this mission, Jared Metter. Really nice to see some endearing, or hear some endearing words up to the crew.
Well, and with that, the Polaris Dawn crew, they're now in orbit. T plus 15 minutes, and they are scheduled to spend up to the next 5 days in space. We heard that tone for a minute. We thought we might hear from the crew, but they're going to spend the next 5 days in space before splashing down off the coast of Florida.
The Polaris Dawn crew is the Polaris Dawn mission is the first mission in the Polaris program that will demonstrate new technologies, conduct extensive research, and ultimately culminate in a flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans on board. All of this while continuing to raise funds and awareness for important causes here on Earth. You can learn more about the Polaris Dawn program and the Polaris program at polarisprogram.com.
This mission will fly higher than any Dragon mission to date, attempting to reach the highest Earth orbit ever flown for a crewed spacecraft, breaking the record set by Gemini 11 half a century ago. And there it looks like we can see some nose cone separation action happening. Now, the Polaris Dawn crew will also be the first to test the Starlink laser-based communications in space.
Over the course of the mission, we'll be checking in periodically with the crew. Next up, Dragon will initiate a 2-day pre-breathe process to prepare the crew for their upcoming spacewalk, and that'll be this Thursday, September 12th.
Dragon SpaceX nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts, and nose cone open is in progress.
Copy that, SpaceX. We are tracking.
And again, that's Thursday, September 12th for that spacewalk, so please be sure to tune in for our live coverage of this historic milestone.
And of course, we will also be back to bring you live coverage of Splashdown when the crew returns back to Earth. You can stay on top of any potential live events from the crew by following us on X at SpaceX.
And keep tabs on the mission with the Dragon Tracker at SpaceX.com. With that, it's been a great early morning. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon.